all the karate I knew and all the rage. I put this in the movie. I put everything. It was getting in cavities, you know. I was a rage. I did everything and.
Hey guys, I recently put up a poll asking you if you thought that final fight in Bloodsport when Van Damme, Frank Dux character, gets blinded by Chong Li, if that's cheesy or if that's awesome. And the poll came back with thousands of votes. So 67% of you thought it was just insanely awesome. 27% thought it was downright cheesy, and then another 7% just thought other. So, and a lot of you in the comments section thought it was, well, it's a combination of cheesy and awesome. And I'll share a couple other comments a little later, but I not only think it is insanely awesome, I literally think it's probably one of the greatest moments in cinematic history. And I'm going to tell you why. We're going to break it down. And a lot of it obviously has to do with the movie, the context of it, the way it's edited, the score by Paul Herzog, etc. But also Van Damme, the actor, Jean-Claude Van Damme, his real life, how it kind of paralleled what's going on in the film, especially in that scene. They even discussed that on his reality show. So I'm going to kind of splice some of that footage in there and you'll get a better idea. But yeah, let's break it down. So first thing we got to mention is the foreshadowing, which is a great screenwriting tool to basically have a scene like earlier in the script or the movie that pays off later. So when we're watching Van Damme reminisce and training with Senzo Tanaka, and you see him do like the blindfold training. When you first see it, you're probably just thinking, oh, well, that's cool ass ninja training, which it is, but boy, does it pay off big time. And then going into that final fight, Chong Li, you could see him and his coach knowing that because Frank Dux did so great in the Kumite, even breaking the new Kumite record, that he's going to be a real challenge for Chong Li. So his coach kind of sets that whole thing up. Again, foreshadowing, but something that takes place much sooner. And this is going to pay off for Chong Li a little bit later during the fight. And Frank Dux actually was dominating that fight for the most part. I mean, Chong Li got a couple of good shots in, but he got to the point where it's like he knew there's no way he could win unless he cheats. Which also kind of ties in and contrasts the two characters, the Frank Dux character versus Chong Li, because it's all about honor, obviously honoring the Shidoshi, but you have to win in like a fair way, an honorable way. But for Chong Li, he doesn't even care. He just wants to win any way necessary. And it's very interesting when he blinds Frank Dux because he becomes more uncivilized, even let out the screeches. It almost harkens back to like an old Western like The Other, when they had the Native Americans as the other, as the bad guy, compared to the more civilized Western cowboy like the Frank Dux character. And I love the editing. I love the different shots they use. So basically, we're putting in the Frank Dux' Van Damme's perspective of how he could barely see, right? It's all out of focus, like looking around. And it's also very disorientating from him. Look at the editing, like the different strikes that Chong Li lands, the different cuts. So it's just coming from the right, from the left, like everywhere. He's just overwhelmed by this, which makes sense because he lost his sense of sight. So his faculties are off. So it's very interesting. So when he's down, look at the anger, look at the frustration, just everything going on. There's a lot of different methods to acting, right? But any great performance, usually the actor needs to draw on something. And boy, did Van Damme have something to draw on.
After 5-6 years of being in Los Angeles, I was pushing, and nothing happened. And pushing to a point I was over. So I fell down into the floor in Norton Avenue. I just fell down like a bag of potato. It's like almost like God pushed me and pushed me. He wanted to see that. God wanted to see how much he can push a human being. I tried my best. People were making fun of me in Belgium because I work with, there's a punching ball of Chuck Norris, is this, is that, is all that stuff. And they made fun of my father. Hey, how's your son doing? Punching ball of Chuck Norris. I gave up everything. I gave up my dog. I gave up my bird. I was having a talking bird. They both die of sadness. I will never forgive myself. I came back in Belgium. I didn't know they died. I gave up 2 animals for this. And then it's like the phone ring. I pick up the phone and Menachem gone and called me. And he said, pass by the office. And that Bloodsport happened and made me famous. I put all the karate I knew and all the rage. I put this in the movie. I put everything. It was getting in cavities, you know, all American, all fucking white teeth and all perfect. I was a rage. I did everything and I worked 20 hours a day. We closed the door of the studio. We did the final fight in half a day with Bolov. Half a day for a final fight. Half a day, 4 cameras, low angle. Let's go. One shot, wide angle. Half a day. They need 2 days, 3 weeks for a fucking fight.
But as far as the performance goes, there's just something very real, very authentic that Van Damme drew upon. And it was just like his whole life leading up to that moment, just years of frustration, anger, disappointment, etc. That's an authentic performance, so it's very real. That's great acting because there's a foundation built off of reality and real emotion. Now with Bloodsport, I've often used the term, they captured lightning in a bottle. It just seemed to have everything going for it, man. The pieces fall into the right place. Like, I couldn't imagine a better story than basing it off that Black Belt magazine with Frank Dux. Great up-and-coming screenwriter at the time, Sheldon Lettich, writing it, collaborating with Frank Dux. Van Damme finally getting his shot, right, as the star. He's got it all on the line. Porter's heart and soul in it. David Worth, the cinematographer, did great work. The director knew Arnold really had a lot of experience cutting his teeth on a lot of bigger films. This was like, I believe this was the first film he directed. Of course, the score by Paul Herzog was absolutely amazing. I mean, they even recently released like an LP, and I'm sure many of you, like me, still listen to this in the gym all the time. Like, it's that great. And that's something really missing in a lot of movies these days. You don't get those amazing scores, and it just adds so much. And the editing, and we gotta give Van Damme credit for that editing too, of putting these fight scenes together just like a certain way, and it had that Van Damme style. Like, he gets a lot of credit for that. It's like a certain vision. He knew how to showcase himself. And then Frank Dux with the fight choreography and everything else, right? All those hungry, passionate people just like pouring their heart and soul in this. And this is why I believe movies like Bloodsport, they have a soul. Like, they're alive. I mean, they're certainly alive in our subconscious mind, right? A lot of you like me grew up watching these when we were like kids or teenagers, and it's just so ingrained in us. In some ways, you could even say it changed our life, which is true. And that's why, despite what you guys may think or say about Frank Dux, or me even associating with him and interviewing and being fair to him, it's like there's always going to be like a soft spot in my heart for somebody like Frank, man, because without Frank, at the end of the day, we wouldn't have Bloodsport. We wouldn't.
I guess what I'm really proud of is that it isn't a story about violence. It's not, you know, it's a story about human beings and faith and about determination and respect. And that's what I've run my life by, and that's what this movie's about.
Now, there are obviously a lot of really great, amazing moments in cinematic history, but I do believe this scene when Van Damme gets blinded in Bloodsport during the final fight against Chong Li, I believe that deserves to be in the discussion. That scene in Bloodsport is really a metaphor for life if you think about it, with like everything it encompasses, right? Everything could be just going great according to plan, and then just boom, something happens. And in the moment, like, emotions are going to kick in. You're going to lose your balance, you're going to lose your focus, but you just need to take a moment, take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember all the training, and just take that, remember it, and then push forward, guys. All right, let me go over a few of the comments that you guys shared, by the way, in that post where I put the poll. Darth Kai said, come on, it's one of the best callbacks in action movie history, which is true. Frank Dux had to put that blind fight training to work and avenge Jackson and honor Shidoshi. Okay, that's really great, I agree. But then here's the complaint. He said, they needed to pull it back a little, though. My friends and I would joke that the cloud of dust was kind of hard to miss. Chong Li could have just rubbed something in Frank's eyes, but who really cares? It's hands down the best tournament fighter movie ever, which is true. What am I even doing here? Need to go watch Bloodsport. Yeah, guys, watch it again. But as far as like the dust cloud's kind of hard to miss, well, if you look at it from like Bloodsport's real and the audience perspective, and all the judges would have seen that, yeah, he's got a good point. But from like a cinematic perspective, they do kind of got to over-exaggerate and dramatize. So because film is such a visual medium, we really need to see like this dust cloud, right? It really kind of needs to stick out for the audience. So that's how I see it. From a filmmaking perspective, I would keep it the same. But yeah, if Chong Li was cheating in real life, then sure, he should do it a different way. All right, the next comment from Kevin Hennessy. I thought it was a bit stupid, to be honest, as Van Damme was there on his knees for ages and Chong Li did nothing when he had a clear opportunity to attack Van Damme in his blinded state. Still a brilliant movie. Yeah, that's true as far as like Chong Li could have won. But see, I think Chong Li probably just really wanted to punish him and keep the fight going, knowing that there's no way, or at least thinking there's no way that the Frank Dux character can win because he's blind. Little did Chong Li know that, hey man, Frank Dux had that blind man training. And then as far as like Van Damme on his knees for ages, so they did really slow down time, and it was all done in slow motion. So it felt like that watching it, like it was really drawn out. But again, because it's a film, they want to over dramatize stuff. So I don't think it would have worked if they didn't slow it down, if they cut it too much where Van Damme wasn't really reflecting. Like it really, the foreshadowing pays off. That's just brilliant. Like I wouldn't change a thing about it personally. All right, Steve Wilkes said, it's a stupid cutaway when the blonde is over the top laughing that spoiled the scene. Okay, so he's actually talking about after Van Damme regains his composure, he's fighting okay blind, but then he misses like these 3 hook kicks in a row. And yeah, I mean, that didn't bug me, but if she was laughing when he was down there blind screaming, then that would have bugged me. Okay, so Alex said both cheesy and awesome. That's why it's so cool. Lorik White said it was the best moment in any movie history. Yes. Yes, I kind of think it was, man. That's why I made this video. Should at least be in the discussion. And then Rain006 said, such a great scene. I get goosebumps every time I watch it. When he finally calms down and closes his eyes and remembers all the training, brings the whole movie together. Yes, exactly. It's so brilliant. I get goosebumps too, and it does just bring everything together. And then Algernon's Blackwood said, it's a scene in Bloodsport, which means it's the height of cinematic badassery, and all other scenes in which the villain temporarily blinds the hero with a hidden substance fail in comparison. Yeah, that's true, man. Bloodsport did it right. I mean, think about like all the movies that took inspiration from Bloodsport and were trying to rip it off because it was so successful, but nobody talks about them. Nobody talks about Blood Fight. Nobody talks about Blood Match. Nobody talks about Blood Fist.
So you want these? I don't want them.
Some people might talk about the sequel to Bloodsport. Bloodsport 2 was actually okay. Bloodsport 3, not horrible. Bloodsport 4, The Dark Kumite, Daniel Bernhardt doesn't even like to talk about that one.
Bloodsport 4 we don't talk about.
And then M. Martinez 9802 said, now it's probably cheesy. Back then it was probably cheesy, but was still cool, cheesy, cool cheese. I think it would be cheesy if it wasn't authentic. Like if Van Damme didn't pull everything out of him and just, okay, that director's like, I want you to act this way, just kind of, do this. And then it would have been really cheesy. And you see that, especially in like a lot of Hong Kong films, because it's not real. It's not authentic emotion and acting. It's just, those are just over the top cheesy, right? But no, Bloodsport, it's real, man.